In the year 2156, humanity's long-held suspicion that they weren't alone in the universe was confirmed. The massive alien ship appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit one Tuesday morning, causing global panic that lasted exactly 6 hours before the aliens established communication. Commander Alex Reeves sat rigid in his chair as the alien delegation entered the United Nations chamber. At 42, with graying temples and the weathered face of someone who had seen too much ocean spray, he had been chosen to head Earth's first diplomatic team. Not because he was the highest-ranking military officer, but because psychological evaluations suggested he was the least likely to panic when facing something utterly unknown. They call themselves the Galactic Union. Alex whispered to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, 17 species across 83 star systems. Olivia nodded, her dark eyes never leaving the procession of aliens. Some walked on legs like humans, others slithered or rolled. One appeared to float slightly above the ground. And we're about to be number 18. The lead alien, a tall, scaled being with 4 arms and iridescent skin, approached the human delegation. This was Ambassador Krell of the Valurians, they had been told, one of the founding species of the Union. "We welcome Earth to the greater community of spacefaring civilizations," Krell announced through the translation device. His voice was melodious despite the mechanical overlay. "Your technological achievements, while modest, have qualified you for provisional membership." Alex stood and bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored." Over the next weeks, humans learned about their new galactic neighbors. The Union was dominated by species like the militaristic Corinth, with their exoskeletons and clan-based hierarchy, and the strategic Valurians, who prided themselves on political maneuvering. Both considered conquest and territorial expansion natural rights of advanced species. When humanity's representatives expressed concerns about conflict and suggested cooperative exploration instead, the first whispers of cowardly humans began circulating among the alien delegations. 6 months into Earth's provisional membership, Dr. Olivia Martinez discovered something troubling. As Earth's leading astrophysicist, she had been granted access to the Union's stellar data archives. Late one night, analyzing patterns of cosmic radiation across the galaxy, she noticed an anomaly. "Commander, look at these readings," she said, pointing to her screen where waves of energy appeared to be moving toward populated space. "These patterns shouldn't exist naturally." Alex frowned at the display. "What am I looking at?" "Energy waves, massive ones, traveling through space. And they're accelerating." Olivia pulled up another chart. "Based on these calculations, they'll reach the outer systems in less than a year." Within days, Alex requested an emergency session with the Union Council. Standing before the assembled alien representatives in their grand chamber on the Union's central station, he felt small but resolute. "Our scientists have detected approaching energy disturbances that could threaten multiple systems," Alex explained, while Olivia displayed the data. "We recommend immediate collaborative research and preparation of defensive measures." The chamber erupted in dismissive chatter. Ambassador Dreskar of the Corinth rose to his full height, his exoskeleton clicking as he moved. "Typical human caution," he said, mandibles flexing in what humans had learned was amusement. "Always seeing threats in scientific curiosities. This is why your kind will never truly join the ranks of galactic powers." The Valurian representative nodded in agreement. "These energy patterns have been observed before. They are natural phenomena of no consequence." Alex exchanged glances with Olivia. The data clearly showed otherwise, but the Union species seemed determined to ignore it. As they left the chamber, a smaller alien approached them. Professor Zinn of the Trilari, a less influential species known for their scientific achievements. "Your concerns are valid," Zinn whispered, multiple eyes blinking nervously. "My own research shows similar conclusions, but the Council won't listen to the Trilari either." Alex nodded grimly. Then perhaps Earth needs to prepare alone. As their ship departed for home, Olivia stared out at the vast expanse of stars. They really think we're cowards, don't they? Let them think what they want, Alex replied. If we're right about this, being prepared won't seem so cowardly soon enough. The data coming back from the deep space monitoring stations was increasingly alarming. Lieutenant Kate Foster stood before the wall of screens in Earth's Space Defense Command Center, her face illuminated by the red warning indicators that now dominated the displays. The energy waves are growing stronger, she reported to the small team of scientists and military personnel gathered in the room. The pattern matches exactly what Dr. Martins predicted 3 months ago. Kate had been chosen to lead the research team investigating the phenomenon not because of seniority. At 34, she was younger than most of her colleagues, but because of her unique ability to connect seemingly unrelated data points. Before the Galactic Union arrived, she had been tracking unusual solar radiation patterns that now appeared connected to the approaching threat. How long until the first wave reaches populated space? Asked General Wu, the stern-faced head of Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force. Kate pulled up a star chart. 8 weeks until it hits the Proxima system. It's an outlying Corinth mining colony. The general nodded grimly. And they still refuse to acknowledge our warnings. Not only refuse, said Kate, they've intensified their mockery. The latest Union communication referred to us as the trembling apes hiding behind their telescopes. 2 days later, at the quarterly Galactic Summit on the Union Central Station, humans faced yet another round of ridicule. The massive assembly hall was designed to intimidate, with soaring ceilings and representatives from 17 species arranged in hierarchical seating. Earth's delegation was positioned in the lowest tier, befitting their provisional status. Ambassador Dreskar of the Corinth took the central platform, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms, he cut an imposing figure deliberately meant to make others feel small. The humans continue to spread their fearful propaganda, he announced to the assembled delegates. Instead of joining glorious territorial expansions, they cower behind their primitive science, warning of imaginary threats. His mandibles clicked in the Corinth expression of contempt. This is why newer species must earn their place among us. They lack the courage of true galactic citizens. Several species chittered or rumbled their agreement. The Valurians, always politically savvy, offered more measured support with elegant hand gestures that their translator explained meant patience with lesser beings. Alex Reeves, now Earth's official ambassador, maintained a neutral expression throughout the humiliation. When given his brief time to address the assembly, he spoke calmly. Earth reaffirms our warning about the approaching energy waves. We have prepared detailed data packets for any species interested in reviewing our findings. Less than 1 standard month later, the first minor energy wave hit the Proxima system. The damage was unexpected and severe. 3 Corinth mining stations went dark simultaneously. Communication satellites failed across the system. 2 transport ships reported critical systems failures before all contact was lost. On Earth, the news was received with grim validation rather than satisfaction. Initial reports confirmed 53 Corinth casualties. Kate informed the emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. The energy wave disrupted their shielding technology and caused radiation poisoning. President Nelson, a former diplomat with silver hair and a perpetually concerned expression, studied the holographic display showing the path of destruction. And the Union's response. Official statement blames it on a rare stellar event unrelated to our warnings, Alex replied. They're focusing on a territorial dispute between the Valurians and the Mox Collective instead. Meanwhile, added Kate, bringing up new simulations, our latest calculations show this was just the precursor. The main wave is still coming, and it's 10 times stronger. The president's face hardened with resolve. Then we continue preparations without them. Authorize the shield generator installations for all Earth colonies. Begin stockpiling emergency supplies. And get me a list of all Union outposts that will be in the path of this thing. Sir, questioned Alex. They may not believe us now, the president said quietly. "But they'll need our help soon enough. And despite what they think of us, we'll be ready to give it." President Jack Nelson stood at the window of the Oval Office, watching rain streak down the glass, while contemplating decisions that would affect not just Earth, but potentially the entire galaxy. Behind him, his Security Council waited silently. "We proceed with Operation Safe Harbor," he finally said, turning to face the room. Even without Union support, the statement was met with nods from the assembled military and scientific leaders. For 2 months since the Proxima incident, Earth had attempted to share their findings about the approaching energy storm. Each time, they were rebuffed or openly mocked by the dominant Union species. "The Corinth ambassador called me personally to warn against spreading human panic," Nelson continued, his voice tight with frustration. "They're blaming the Proxima disaster on equipment failure." Alex Reeves, recently returned from another failed diplomatic mission, spoke up. "The Valurians are at least listening politely now, but they won't commit to any action that might weaken their political position." In a sprawling research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, engineer Chris Morales was oblivious to these political concerns. For 18 hours straight, he had been focused on a single problem: how to shield living beings from the deadly radiation carried by the energy waves. "Try recalibrating to frequency band 9, he told his team, rubbing bloodshot eyes. At 39, Chris had spent most of his career developing protection systems against solar radiation for Mars colonists. Now those skills were being put to a more urgent test. The prototype shield generator hummed, creating a visible bubble of faintly blue energy around the test chamber. Inside, sensitive equipment measured radiation levels, while biological samples were exposed to simulated energy wave conditions. "It's holding," shouted Aaron, Chris's assistant, as the test readings stabilized. 94% reduction in harmful radiation. Chris allowed himself a small smile. "Not good enough for living tissue over extended exposure. We need 98% minimum, but we're getting closer." Across Earth and its colonies, similar scenes played out as humanity prepared in secret. In underground facilities on Mars, engineers converted mining tunnels into massive shelters. On Europa, aquatic habitats were expanded into the ice moon's depths. On distant Tau Ceti, Earth's furthest colony, construction crews worked around the clock to build shield generator arrays. On a secure military channel, Captain Samuel Wright briefed his fellow fleet commanders from the bridge of the U.S. Defender. "All vessels are being retrofitted with the new shield technology," he explained, his weathered face serious beneath close-cropped gray hair. "Our primary mission will be evacuation, not combat. If these energy waves hit populated systems as predicted, we'll need to move a lot of people very quickly." "What about Union resistance?" asked Captain Linda Hayes of the U.S. Guardian. "They're still denying there's a threat." "We prepare anyway," Samuel replied firmly. "Better to ask forgiveness than permission when lives are at stake." In the Union Council chambers, those lives remained at risk due to politics and pride. The latest human warning had been formally censured as attempted disruption of galactic harmony. Union media channels openly mocked Earth, with popular entertainment shows featuring caricatures of trembling humans hiding in bunkers. "The so-called energy crisis is simply cowardly propaganda," announced Dreskar in a widely broadcast statement. "The humans seek attention because they cannot compete with true galactic powers." Meanwhile, Dr. Olivia Martinez had secured a private meeting with Professor Zinn of the Trilari and representatives from 3 other minor Union species who shared Earth's concerns. "We cannot provide official support," Zinn said, multiple eyes blinking anxiously, "but we can share these shield specifications with our people discreetly." Olivia handed over the data chips containing Earth's latest shield designs. "This isn't about being right or wrong. It's about saving lives." Back on Earth, as the shield generators came online around major population centers, President Nelson addressed the world's population. "We hope our preparations prove unnecessary," he said gravely. "But hope is not a strategy. We will be ready, not because we are afraid, but because we are responsible. And if our Union neighbors need help when the time comes, we will offer it freely, regardless of how they've treated our warnings. As the broadcast ended, long-range sensors detected the second, stronger wave of energy, now just weeks away from the first inhabited systems. The first massive energy wave struck without warning. One moment, the Corinth homeworld system was functioning normally. Military vessels patrolling space, mining operations extracting resources from the system's asteroid belt, billions of Corinth going about their daily lives. The next moment, chaos erupted. The wave hit like an invisible tsunami. Electrical systems across the system failed simultaneously. Shields collapsed. Communications went silent. Radiation alarms blared briefly before they too shut down. On the Corinth homeworld, Ambassador Dreskar watched in horror from the governmental complex as the sky turned an unnatural purple. Static electricity made the plates of his exoskeleton vibrate painfully. Around him, other Corinth warriors dropped to their knees, mandibles clicking in agony as the radiation penetrated their bodies. Emergency protocols, he shouted, but the command systems were already dead. The proud Corinth military, for all its strength and weaponry, found itself helpless against an enemy it couldn't fight. Similar scenes played out across 12 Union systems within the next 36 hours. The wave moved through space faster than any vessel could travel, leaving devastation in its wake. Stations lost power. Planets faced suddenly hostile environments as their protective technologies failed. On Earth, the command center fell silent as reports flooded in. Union communications are going dark system by system, reported Kate Foster, her face pale with the knowledge that millions were suffering. The wave's strength is even greater than our models predicted. President Nelson turned to his military advisors. How are our shields holding? Earth's main shield grid is at full strength, General Wu confirmed. All colonies report successful activation of their protective systems. We're experiencing some power fluctuations, but nothing critical. The president nodded grimly. Then it's time. Launch the rescue operations. Across human space, ships that had been preparing for this moment sprang into action. The U.S. Defender, retrofitted with Chris Morell's latest shield technology, led a fleet of 20 vessels toward the devastated Corinth homeworld system. As they approached, the scene that greeted them was apocalyptic. Disabled ships drifted lifelessly. Stations were dark, rotating without control. Emergency beacons flickered weakly across the system. Commander Lisa Taylor of the U.S. Defender opened a channel to any receivers still functioning. This is Earth Vessel Defender offering emergency assistance. We have medical teams, radiation treatments, and evacuation capacity. For long minutes, there was no response. Then a weak signal came through. This is Valurian Research Vessel Mineseeker, came a strained voice. Our systems are failing. Life support critical. We have 28 scientists aboard. Sending coordinates now, Lisa responded. Prepare for emergency docking. As the Defender moved alongside the crippled Valurian vessel, other human ships spread throughout the system, responding to any distress calls they could detect. Their shields glowed blue against the lingering radiation, protecting them where Union technology had failed. On Earth and across human colonies, shields hummed with steady power as the energy wave washed over them. Underground shelters filled with people watched on screens as the protective technology held firm. There were power surges and minor systems failures, but no catastrophic breakdowns. In Union space, the situation was dire. With communications severely limited, the Galactic Council struggled to coordinate any response. Many council members themselves were trapped on planets or stations with failing life support. After 3 days of rescue operations, the U.S. Defender docked at Earth's orbital station with its first group of refugees, a mix of Valurians, Trillari, and even a few Corinth warriors too injured to object to human assistance. Professor Zinn was among them, his multiple eyes blinking weakly as he was helped onto the station. You were right, he told Alex Reeves, who had come to meet the survivors. The Union should have listened. Alex shook his head. This isn't about being right. It's about what comes next. The main storm is still coming, and there are billions more in its path. As if confirming his words, emergency channels suddenly activated. The Galactic Council, what remained of it, was formally requesting human assistance after dismissing their warnings for so long. Tell them, President Nelson instructed when informed of the request, that the ships are already on their way. The fleet of human vessels moved through space with purpose, their blue shield bubbles glowing against the darkness. What had begun as 20 ships had grown to over 100 as Earth committed every available vessel to the rescue effort. Leading this massive operation was Admiral Ben Jackson, a 60-year-old veteran with a weathered face and steady hands. Status report, he requested from the bridge of the flagship Aurora. His communications officer looked up from her station. We have confirmed distress signals from 17 more Union outposts. The Corinth military has abandoned 3 of their colony worlds to protect their remaining fleet. The Admiral's expression darkened. Civilian populations still present. Yes, sir. Estimated 8 million individuals across those worlds. Redirect Rescue Group 3 to those coordinates, he ordered without hesitation. Throughout Union space, human vessels were now the only functioning rescue units. The energy storm had rendered most alien technologies useless, their shields unable to withstand the radiation and electromagnetic interference. Only the specially designed human vessels, with engineer Ryan Cooper's adaptive shield technology, could safely navigate the affected regions. Ryan himself was aboard the frigate Horizon, constantly monitoring and adjusting the shield systems. At 36, with perpetually rumpled clothes and dark circles under his eyes, he had barely slept in weeks. The shields on the transport shuttles are fluctuating, he told Captain Patel as alarms blinked on his console. We need to modify the frequency again. How long? The captain asked. Ryan's fingers flew across the controls. 5 minutes, but we have to land soon. The radiation exposure for the refugees will be too high otherwise. Below on the planet's surface, Major Stephanie Miller led the ground rescue team through the ruins of what had once been a prosperous Valyrian colony. The buildings, made of crystalline materials that normally glowed with internal light, now stood dark and damaged. Her team moved efficiently, each member protected by personal shield generators trapped to their backs. Life signs ahead, reported her scanner specialist, pointing toward a collapsed structure. Stephanie switched to her megaphone. This is Earth Rescue Team. Is anyone alive in there? A weak voice responded in the Valyrian language, which their translators converted. Help, 26 survivors, systems failing. The rescue was slow and dangerous work. The Valyrians, weakened by radiation exposure, needed to be carefully moved to the shielded transport vehicles. Dr. Nicole Sanders, the team's medical specialist, administered emergency treatments as they worked. This anti-radiation compound will stabilize them until we reach the ship, she explained to a Valyrian elder whose translucent skin had taken on a sickly gray hue. Try to remain calm. Back on Earth, every available medical facility was being converted to accommodate alien physiology. The first wave of refugees had already filled temporary housing in underground shelters across human territories. President Nelson addressed the global population via emergency broadcast. We are opening our homes to those displaced by this disaster. They may not be human, but they are people in need. Our differences matter less than our shared right to survive. In orbit around a heavily populated Corinth colony world, the situation had become desperate. The U.S. Guardian under Captain Linda Hayes faced an impossible choice. The planet's radiation levels were rising to lethal levels, but their evacuation was only half complete. We can't fit everyone on the remaining shuttles, her executive officer reported grimly. Captain Hayes studied the situation display. Contact the colony leaders. Tell them we'll prioritize children in medical cases, but we'll return for the others. The Corinth commander's response was unexpected. You would return. Even knowing the risk increases every hour. We don't leave people behind, Hayes replied simply. not even those who once mocked us. At a hastily established refugee center on Mars, Ambassador Dreskar of the Corinth watched as human doctors treated his people with the same care they showed their own. His once proud stance was humbled, his exoskeleton dulled from radiation exposure. "Why help us?" he asked Alex Reeves, who had come to check on the refugees. "After how we treated your warnings." Alex handed him a water container adapted for Corinth physiology. "Because that's who we are. The same caution you called cowardice is what prepared us to save lives, including yours." Outside the medical center, more transport ships were landing, bringing thousands more displaced aliens to safety as the energy storm continued its destructive path through the galaxy. The main energy storm approached the core worlds of the Galactic Union with unstoppable momentum. Unlike the previous waves, this one was visible even to the naked eye, a massive purple-green distortion that warped space itself as it traveled. Scientists estimated it was 10 times more powerful than anything they had yet encountered. "This is going to hit the most populated systems in the Union," Kate Foster explained during the emergency briefing. The holographic display showed the storm's projected path, cutting through the heart of galactic civilization. Over 30 billion sentient beings are in its direct path. Admiral Jackson studied the display grimly. "How many can we evacuate in time?" "Even with every ship we have, perhaps 2%, Kate answered. "We need to focus on helping planets activate whatever shelters they've managed to build using our designs." The human fleet was now spread thin across Union space. Following Earth's example, some alien worlds had frantically constructed shield generators and underground bunkers, but many had started too late or lacked the resources to protect their entire populations. On the bridge of the U.S. horizon, Captain Daniel Garcia received the latest evacuation assignments. At 41, with a scar running along his jawline from an earlier rescue mission, he had become known throughout the fleet as a miracle worker, finding ways to save people from seemingly impossible situations. "We're being sent to the Corinth military base at Velos Prime," he told his crew. "It's directly in the storm's path and has reported shield failures." His executive officer looked up in surprise. "Isn't that their main fleet headquarters?" "It is," Daniel confirmed. "And according to this, they've already evacuated their high command and abandoned nearly 8,000 support personnel and their families." The journey to Velos Prime took 18 hours at maximum speed. When they arrived, the situation was even worse than reported. The massive space station was running on emergency power, with radiation already leaking through failing shields. The energy storm would reach them in less than 10 hours. Daniel opened communications. "This is Captain Garcia of Earth Vessel Horizon. We're here to assist with evacuation." The response came from a junior Corinth officer whose mandibles trembled visibly, a sign of extreme distress in their species. "The command ships took most of the evacuation vessels. We have over 8,000 people and only transport capacity for 3,000. We'll take as many as we can," Daniel promised. "And we'll figure out something for the rest." As evacuation began, the storm's advance effects were already being felt. Power fluctuations increased. Radiation levels rose steadily. The horizon's shields glowed bright blue as they strained against the building energy. In engineering, Ryan Cooper worked frantically to modify the shield systems. "If we reconfigure our main shield to cover both ships, we might be able to protect one of their remaining transports through the worst of it." "That would leave us vulnerable," warned his assistant. Ryan nodded. "Yes, it would." On the station, Major Stephanie Miller led the evacuation efforts, organizing the frightened Corinth into groups and guiding them to the docking bays. Even with perfect efficiency, the math was grim. They couldn't save everyone. A young Corinth approached her, holding a small child. "Officer, please, take my daughter at least." Stephanie looked at the child, then at the hundreds of others waiting. "We're trying to save everyone," she said, though she knew it might not be possible. 6 hours later, with the storm now visible through the station's viewports as a wall of swirling energy, The evacuation had reached its limit. The horizon was packed with refugees, as was one Corinth transport vessel. But nearly 2,000 people remained on the station. Captain Daniel made the decision. "Mr. Cooper, extend our shields around that transport. We'll escort them out together." "Sir," his pilot objected, "the calculations show our shields won't hold for both vessels through the storm's peak intensity." Daniel nodded. "I know, but we can at least give them a fighting chance." As the transport pulled away from the station with its precious cargo, the horizon took position beside it, extending its shield bubble to encompass both ships. Behind them, the station's remaining occupants sent a single message: "Thank you for trying." The edge of the storm hit them with tremendous force. The horizon shuddered as its shields flared brilliantly against the onslaught. Warning alarms blared across every deck. "Shield failure in 3 minutes," reported the engineering officer. Daniel looked at the transport ship nestled safely within their protective bubble. "Hold position. Keep those shields up as long as possible." 3 months after the main energy storm passed through galactic space, the reconstruction efforts were well underway. The galaxy had been forever changed, physically, politically, and philosophically. Alex Reeves stood at the viewport of the new Galactic Council station, watching ships come and go against the backdrop of stars. The original station had been destroyed in the storm, along with many other symbols of Union power. This replacement was smaller, built with human shield technology integrated into its very structure. "Ambassador Reeves, they're ready for you," said his aide. Alex nodded and straightened his formal uniform. Today marked the first official council session since the disaster, and Earth's position had changed dramatically. The new council chamber reflected the changed balance of power. Gone was the hierarchical arrangement that had placed newer species at the bottom. Instead, representatives sat in a circle, symbolizing equality. Alex took his place at one of the primary seats. Earth had been granted full membership and a leadership position in recognition of their actions during the crisis. Ambassador Dreskar of the Corinth entered, moving more slowly than before. Like many of his species, he had suffered radiation damage that their medical technology couldn't fully repair. Human doctors had helped, but some effects were permanent. "Ambassador Reeves," he greeted, his once intimidating posture now more measured. "I wish to inform you personally before the session begins. The Corinth High Command has posthumously awarded your Captain Garcia and the crew of the Horizon our highest military honor." Alex felt the familiar ache at the mention of the Horizon. "Thank you. Their sacrifice saved over 4,000 of your people." "The Corinth do not forget their debts," Dreskar said solemnly, "nor their mistakes." The council session began with a moment of silence for the billions lost. Then came the business of rebuilding the civilization. New communication networks were being established. Refugee populations were being resettled. Trade routes were being reestablished. Most significant was the adoption of what was now called the Earth Protocol, a comprehensive system for threat assessment and collaborative response that would prevent future dismissal of scientifically sound warnings. As the session concluded, Alex was approached by Professor Zinn of the Trulari, now elevated to his species' chief representative. "The human shield technology saved nearly 40% of our population," Zinn said, blinking his multiple eyes in gratitude. "Your people's willingness to share your technology, even after being ridiculed, is remarkable." Alex smiled slightly. It was the right thing to do. Later that evening, a small ceremony was held aboard the U.S. Defender to honor the crews who had served in the rescue operations. Admiral Jackson presented medals to officers and enlisted personnel who had distinguished themselves during the crisis. When he came to Dr. Nicole Sanders, whose radiation treatments had saved countless alien lives, he said, "Your work bridged the gap between vastly different physiologies under impossible conditions. Billions now live because of your innovations." Nicole, exhausted from months of non-stop work, simply nodded. "I'm just grateful we were prepared." On Earth, President Nelson stood before the United Nations, addressing representatives from every human nation. Behind him was a memorial wall listing the names of those lost in the rescue efforts, with the crew of the Horizon prominently displayed. "The cost was high," he said, his voice solemn. "But in saving others, we revealed the true nature of humanity. Not cowards hiding behind science, but people willing to use knowledge to protect all life, even at great risk to ourselves." In orbit around what had once been the Corinth homeworld, construction teams built new habitats using a combination of human and alien technology. Engineer Ryan Cooper, now heading the reconstruction course, supervised as the first shield generators came online. "The integration is working perfectly," his Corinth counterpart noted with surprise. "Our power systems and your shield design, they're more efficient together than either alone." Ryan nodded. "That's the lesson here, isn't it? We're stronger together." 5 years after the great energy storm, the galaxy had transformed in ways few could have imagined. What began as reconstruction had evolved into renaissance as species that once competed now collaborated, creating technologies and social systems that benefited all. On the anniversary of the storm's passing, a special ceremony took place on Earth. Representatives from every Union species gathered in a vast amphitheater built specifically for the occasion. At its center stood a monument, a simple sphere of blended metals contributed by each world, surrounded by an eternal blue shield that mimicked the technology that had saved so many lives. Captain Daniel Garcia, one of the 3 miraculous survivors from the U.S. Horizon, walked slowly toward the podium. His recovery had been long and difficult. Burns covered much of his body, and he still used a cane to walk. Yet his presence at this ceremony was essential. "5 years ago, we faced extinction," he began, his voice stronger than his body appeared. "Not as humans, or Corinth, or Valurians, but as sentient beings in a universe that holds dangers beyond our individual comprehension." In the audience, Ambassador Dreskar of the Corinth nodded solemnly. Beside him sat Professor Zinn and representatives from a dozen other species. What had once been an uneasy alliance was now a genuine fellowship forged in shared survival. "Today we dedicate this memorial not just to those we lost, but to what we found," Daniel continued. "A common purpose, a shared future, and the understanding that our differences mean little compared to our common right to exist." As he spoke, a live transmission displayed similar ceremonies taking place simultaneously on 50 worlds across the galaxy. On each, the same monument stood, a physical reminder of unity that transcended planetary boundaries. In orbit above Earth, the newly commissioned exploration vessel Unity prepared for its maiden voyage. Unlike previous ships, its crew comprised members from 8 different species, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to their shared mission. Commander Olivia Martinez, now promoted and recovered from her own injuries, walked the bridge of this revolutionary vessel. Engineers Ryan Cooper and his Corinth colleague Trask made final adjustments to the shield systems, a hybrid technology more powerful than either species could have developed alone. "Final diagnostics complete," reported Ryan. "The dimensional shield is operating at 120% of theoretical capacity." This new shield technology, born from the crisis, could now protect against threats no one had even imagined before. It was one of many innovations emerging from cross-species collaboration. In a research facility on what had once been a barren moon, Dr. Nicole Sanders worked alongside Valurian biologists to develop crops that could grow in radiation-affected soils. Their success had already begun to restore agriculture on worlds damaged by the storm. "The adaptive genome sequence is holding," noted her Valurian colleague. "These plants will help feed millions on my homeworld." Nicole smiled. "And the medical applications could help those still suffering from radiation effects." Back on Earth, as the ceremony concluded, President Nelson met privately with the Union Leadership Council. Maps displayed newly charted energy patterns throughout the galaxy, research made possible by the combined sensor networks of 17 species. "We're detecting similar phenomena in 3 neighboring galaxies," explained Kate Foster, now heading the Galactic Early Warning System. With our combined technology, we can track these events years before they pose any danger. And the protective measures? Asked a Corinth representative. Being implemented across all core worlds, with outlying colonies next in line, Kate confirmed. No world will be left unprotected, regardless of species or status. As dusk fell on the ceremony, Alex Reeves found himself standing alone by the memorial. His reflection shimmered in its protective shield, a visual reminder of how thin the barrier was between existence and oblivion, and how precious their shared survival had become. A young Trilari approached, one who had been just a child during the evacuation. Is it true what they say, that before the storm, different species couldn't work together? Alex smiled gently. We were all so focused on our differences that we couldn't see what united us. Sometimes the universe has to remind us of what truly matters. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, lights illuminated memorials across the galaxy, beacons of remembrance, but also of hope for a future that none of them would have to face alone.